Hello everyone, I'm Abid Hassan, Senior Assistant Editor, ETHRWorld. I welcome you all to this webinar on a very worthy topic, using tech to ensure a dignified livelihood for frontline workers. The re-emergence of blue-collar employees is occurring, and technology is the source of this re-emergence. It has bridged the gap between the demand and the supply of frontline workers. It has also enhanced their livelihood and upskilled them in tough crises. These frontline workers have become pivotal in every organization, and these organizations are trying to give a satisfying experience with the help of technology to make their lives better. People leaders, organizations are specifically focusing on skilling, providing insurance, gender equality, and flexibility with tech tools. Today, I have four very senior industry leaders who will discuss the role of technology that plays in the upliftment of frontline workers. We'll also discuss if we need only tech and not the human touch, and what can be done and what can be undone in order to make the workforce better. Without any pause, I would like to introduce my esteemed panelists for this evening. Please welcome my first guest, Mr. Dhruv Dubey, General Manager, HR, Spencer's Retail.
Thank you, Abid. Really nice to be over here at this panel. I welcome all of you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Dhruv. Please welcome my next guest, Mr. Sanjeev Chaudhary, Senior Vice President, Business Competency and Channel Development, Side Life Insurance. Welcome, Sanjeev.
Thank you, Abid. It's a pleasure to be a part of this group, and as well as it's also an opportunity to speak about something which has been under the wraps for quite a while. So yeah, looking forward to a very meaningful interaction.
Definitely, good points. We will discuss and make it bring it in the spotlight. Thank you so much. My next guest, Mr. Rahul Sheth, Director HR Licious. Welcome, Rahul.
Thank you, Abid. And as Sanjeev has said, it's actually something very enriching today that's perhaps going to happen. More than what I'm going to share, I'm looking forward to learn what others are going to speak and also the questions that we are going to enjoy from the audiences. Thanks a lot for this participation.
I'm looking forward to the same, for learning and knowing a lot more. And my next guest, Mr. Manish Tiwari, Senior Director, Sales, BetterPlace. Welcome, Manish.
Yeah, hi Abid. Good to be part of this panel. I guess a very esteemed set of people over here. And I think look forward to having a engaging interaction and sharing our thoughts. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you all for coming and joining this session. And I also want to thank all the delegates, all the attendees who are attending this session live. And before I start the Q&A, I would like to tell them that please share your questions and ask questions in the Q&A tab. Our guest will take these questions at the end of this session. The last 15 minutes will take the Q&A from all of you. They'll try and share their thoughts and experiences. And that's it. And I think it's time to start with my first question. And Dhruv, I'll start with you. Hope that is fine.
Absolutely.
So Dhruv, very basic question, about the organization, what we are talking about, what should they do and what they shouldn't do. So what should organizations stop and start doing? Stop doing and start doing that will improve the livelihood of blue-collar workers. What are your thoughts?
That's a kind of a very open-ended question, and I really like to kind of begin the conversation, because if you look at from a life of a blue-collar worker, and as for my understanding also, they need a lot of things. And right from the very beginning, they need something with like a stable job. They need a safe work environment. They need stability. They need consistency, salary on time, and benefits, and so many things. So, and there are some very good efforts that are being made across the organizations to really improve. Many organizations have realized the values of this workforce. But if you kind of like to generalize it and see what should we start and stop. So from a stop perspective, we should stop looking at them as highly replaceable workforce. That's what I believe. We tend to look at them as a mass, we tend to look them as a number, and we tend to look them as a section rather than individuals. And generalizing their skill sets, we should look at individual capabilities. Uh, so once we stop doing them, looking at it in mass, and then try to start doing is looking at in some ways their individual capabilities, and then how they can be leveraged a lot more into the organization's mainstream. And here I believe that the role of technology starts playing in a big manner, because the world is just opened up for them. They may be doing a first job, or they were in unorganized sector and they are moving into an organized sector. So the world of knowledge, first of all, has to be open to them. And that's the first level where we're just talking about pure technical functional skills. And then I certainly believe that we should start doing is to introduce them to a good mentoring or a good insight into what's the ethics of working is. Because one thing that I have realized, that though they are hardworking, they are kind of devoted, but a lot of time they end up making mistakes that take them off the mainstream of the organizations, the mainstream of employers. It can be about work ethics, it can be about behavioral ethics, it can be about their grooming, it can be their presence and that they are presenting themselves, or sometimes they just get overwhelmed with there's so much of personal needs that they get off the train. So I certainly believe that getting them exposed to the right leaders, to the right technology, to the world of knowledge is something that we should start doing a lot more, because they are at the initial stages of the career, and we should stop doing or looking at them just as in mass, and try to develop a few ways in which we can reach to out to them individually and see what capabilities they can bring up.
Thank you so much, Dhruv. And I really like the point where you mentioned that we need to stop highlight, thinking them as highly replaceable workers. But this is more of a mindset thing from the employers. Anyone want to pitch in that how do we change this mindset? Through Manish, anything, anyone?
May I?
Yeah,
Abid?
please. Yeah, please.
Look, the current system has flaws. Lack of a unified platform to identify people is not prevalent, is not available. The only thing what is right now available to these blue collar people is the access to the local recruiters or local guys through whom they get connects and get work. So effectively, they become quite replaceable because since there is no unified platform, there is no history of the work they have done. Effectively, they become just as a number. But if you have a system in place whereby you are able to measure, you have a metric in place for their skills or the work what they have done, effectively you will be able to graduate them to second level, third level, and effectively they become a very effective workforce. Today they are easily replaceable, and also replaceable because they are not moving across the country. They are limited to their own excesses of the work where they get the work from. So I would say I would concede to what Dhruv is saying. We need an intermediary. It can and the best intermediary current situations is the tech. Whereby we have a system in place whereby these guys are connected to a larger ecosystem. Otherwise, we as a country is pretty socio-economically pretty rich country and diverse country as such. But our unemployment rates are so high, and largely because of that, because the access to the right job by the right people is not there. So I say that there is a need to look beyond what a person's only the competencies for that particular role are, and then move ahead.
Thank you so much. I think I'll come back to you, Sanjeev. I have a very relevant question what you mentioned about replaceable. My question to Manish. Manish, as Sanjeev also mentioned about tech. So I would like to ask you a very simple basic thing. How can companies use a tech platform or multiple tech platforms to improve the lives of blue collar workers? Would you like to list down some hacks if you have?
Sure. So thanks, Abid. I guess just building on the point which in fact Dhruv and Sanjeev both said, there is definitely a not a level playing field, at least till very recently, where people like me, you, and maybe all the panelists over here, we have got access to technology, and we can use it to look for jobs, opportunity, upskill ourselves, and even when we get a job, we have so many platforms and avenues using technology to keep upskilling or keep looking at growth. I think the key challenge, as both my earlier speakers mentioned, is blue collar workers today don't have that. And this is changing. Thankfully, I guess this is changing with, let's say, platform like we have a platform and some other platforms also. Right at all ecosystems. So right from, let's say, job discovery, somebody sitting in let's say a tier 2 or a tier 3 city. Because of technology and, let's say, tech platforms like us and some others also, they can know what are the jobs available even outside, because there are so many blue collar job boards and portals which are available now. That's number one in terms of discovery. The second is, so technology is helping you discover what is available. The second is in terms of upskilling. So again, with tech platforms, with courses being available, earlier it was just more of a white collar domain where good courses were available and you could upskill. But then the point is, you can do this now even with the blue collar one, because you can pick up courses, upskill yourself, and job. And thirdly, even when you get a job, I think the big thing is that when the blue collar worker gets a job, he or she can have access to, let's say, tech-based payroll system, compliance, benefits, or so. So all this makes the journey of a blue collar worker much more smoother. And we have seen it with our clients. We have seen it with other companies also. Companies are adopting it, and that is what is making the lives of blue collar workers, I think, much more better. I don't think it is still in a perfect space. A lot of work needs to be done, but thankfully, I guess technologies are available today, and that is making, I guess it's a more democratic and a more level playing field, I guess, for a blue collar worker. That's the submission I'll have.
Yes, it's a democratic and more living playing field. Yes, but going forward, there's a lot to be done. There has companies are doing a lot, but I think I can see that glass is half full. So that's a positive side of it. I'll come to Rahul. Rahul, this pandemic has taught us a lot, and especially when it comes to blue collar workers, when they left the organization for their hometown, we realized how important they are. So I just want to ask you, when it comes to blue collar workforce management, it is important to think beyond wages. During the pandemic, the first lockdown, we all thought about wages. But how can we make a shift to charting out a career path for blue collar workers? What do you think, and how will that impact their livelihood?
Yes, Abid. So when we talk about careers, what we actually imagine is a person advancing in their profession, and through developing deeper and deeper specialization, and by spending more and more years, right? And professions themselves had so many branches, each offers so many opportunities and countless career paths. But first thing at the outset that we should acknowledge that majority of the traditional blue collar professions that certainly involve manual labor to a large extent will find it hard to offer opportunities of career advancement just by spending more and more years. This is because of the fact that there is so little to specialize in. And in this context, we should also understand that most of the blue collar workforce shall continue to remain outside that traditional career paths network. However, this does not mean that the blue collar workforce is eternally divorced from having long, enriching careers. What this means is that the blue collar workforce would need to climb the first step of their career ladder by first leaving their current roles behind. It is not by just continuing in their manual roles that they will have perhaps a flourishing career. And what will enable this? It will be enabled by definite massive surge in white collar knowledge worker jobs. And these are in the roles of supervisors, staffers, computer operators, trainers, accountants. Now, transition into such white collar jobs will be the first step in the traditional career path in the nomenclature that we mean when we use the term career. It shall be like entering the gate to a universe of careers. And while technology will certainly enable access to developing capabilities for such white collar jobs, employers such as us ourselves can make such a huge difference in education and training of their wide workforce, our own people, right? So that we enable our people to take the first little step into the formal career system. And it shall largely be enabled through two actions at our end. The first is basically offering opportunities. So whatever capability development we can enable through investments in training from our side, education from our side, for our people. And secondly is offering opportunities for professional growth by opening gates to our own roles for our own population, by not denying them. As one of the speakers earlier said, so to let us remove that mask of requirement of little education requirements, etc. In fact, use vocational trainings as enablers for people to advance into the higher order roles. Now, as for us, what Licious is doing, I'll tell you, like, we have been involved in developing the first of its kind certification for meat artists. We call our butchers meat artists, not butchers, traditionally what they are known as, where they undergo weeks long training to understand meat science, meat processing, the art of cooking. And this involves developing one of the finest meat artists in India, raising the benchmarks of the profession completely. And it in fact creates a new career path for them. I'm happy to also share that majority of our supervisors that we have in Licious have been developed from such meat artists. Majority of them at a point of time were not even able to read their own Aadhaar cards. And every piece of Licious product that you consume today is crafted by one of such meat artists. Every piece that you receive at your home. And secondly, what we are also doing, that we have also worked on Licious Academy, where we have enabled access to school education for our blue collar workforce, which actually means that there are many people that we found who have not even been able to complete the primary schooling. So we have been offering them courses which will at least enable them to complete classes until high schools, right? And in multiple language on the lines of a board curriculum. And secondly, lastly, we are also offering all our internal roles, that is the first level supervisory roles, first to our extended field force, and thereafter hiring from outside, including delivery partners. In most of our Licious delivery center, if you go and see, you are sure to find supervisors who were Licious delivery partners earlier, drawn from very far regions of India. Today they're handling centers and they're also proud owners of company stock options. And
good to hear that that meat artist. And next time when I'll order from Licious, I'm looking forward to have some artistic meat for sure. So coming back to Sanjeev, Sanjeev, you mentioned about replaceable. When I asked you about replaceable, I would like to ask you, if you are upskilling yourself and reskilling yourself every now and then, you become irreplaceable, right? So what do you think? Upskilling is very significant and crucial for your career growth. And what Rahul was also saying, how do you think this has an impact in the life of a blue collar worker? How the upskilling can help them in career growth? This is more of a question what I asked.
I'd like to answer this question in two parts. Number one,
yeah, please.
Upskilling is important, and as Rahul was rightly pointing out, they do a lot of interventions of ensuring that people go from one cadre to another cadre, because skill adds to their value. But what is also happening in the meanwhile, the traditional jobs are also getting redundant with the advent of technology. So if you continue to do the same methodology for these blue collar workers, you will actually produce more of them. That transition has to happen by a consistent or a continuous interventions given by the organizations to not only upskill them, because we have to acknowledge there is a lack of literacy. As Rahul said, that there are people who are who could not even read Aadhaar cards. So these are the kind of people you are meeting. You are actually getting these guys to become employees in whatever form and shape, whether they are partners, they are your service providers or whatever, but they become a part of you. Today, a Licious or let's say a Spencer guy or any other organization is represented by the workers they have. So they become a part of you. So first of all, you have to take initiatives to ensure that they are skilled up. And ultimately, the job roles are getting so redefined that if you don't reskill them with the new tech interfaces, then you will have an army of people who will be redundant after some time. And it's for their own benefit that they keep on, that's their own endeavor, that they have to ensure that they take extreme measures to up the game for themselves. Number one, we all know blue collar job, the competencies is there is no defined competency in a role. So it's only by the work which he has done, you understand the guy is competent or not competent, or by reference or by experience, you can define that. There is no document available to any one of us today, at least in some areas, whereby you could say, okay, this guy is competent of this level, or the history is sort of certain A grade, B grade, C grade. There is no history of employment. Once he leaves the job and he disassociates with his previous employers, you do not have any way to find out what has been his competency level. So it's important for him equally to ensure, first of all, as I said, the tech will play a tremendous disruptive role in ensuring it happens. Secondly, that lack of literacy has to be compensated somehow. We have to provide ecosystems whereby they come back, they learn. The learning process can be slow, it can be painful as well, but we'll have to put them through a process whereby they take interest. And this will also only happen if you are putting a lot of empathy, as you're ensuring that you have a pipeline in place. And I'm very, very delighted to hear what Rahul said, that many of the supervisors were basically, the term is meat artists. I mean, it is heartening to see that people are graduating from different levels, and it can only be possible across industries if we have a very dedicated curriculum and intent to ensure that skilling and upskilling and reskilling happens on a continuous basis.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your 2 cents about reskilling and how it's important. Anything else that you'd like to add, Manish? Because I also wanted to ask you how digital upskilling can, improve their life, because you are handling a lot in terms of come to, BetterPlace. So just wanted to ask you if you have any thoughts to share.
Yeah, Abid, so just adding on to, I think, important point which Sanjeev said, and I totally concur with what he's saying. Jobs are getting redundant, so upskilling is no longer more of a wish, it is really a need, right? If somebody, and I'll just give you a couple of maybe interesting examples I saw in my work. So one of our clients had a lot of huge fleet of frontline workers across the country, sales guys and all. And once I happened to talk to somebody in Northeast, I think Siliguri or some other place, and spoke to them, and we basically had implemented our tech-based skilling solution with them. And the idea was to understand how it is helping. Fine, all that data is fine, but when you really go in the field, it is good to see how it really helps somebody on the field. And the conversation I had, this guy gave me the insight that one way it really helps him is that at the click of a button, he can see the product information. At click of a button, he can get tips, for example, in terms of how to handle a particular customer or a situation. And it's a great thing. And it may not sound very big for people like us, maybe sitting in a metro or so, but somebody in a tier 3 place, if he can have access to the best stuff in terms of learning, in terms of best practices and all, it makes a huge difference to his or her productivity on the field. So that's just one example. And that again brings to the same point that technology really helps. And one more point I'd like to add is, one is the upskilling in the job, and second is jobs are also changing, right? And it's not that somebody who's a delivery boy today will always want to be a delivery boy. He would like to go to a different career or so. And again, technology gives you that access, courses which are available, and not just formal courses, but other inputs that are available using a tech platform enables. And we have again had cases wherein with some of our clients, you have had people who started in a delivery role, actually went on to a completely different role. They upskilled themselves over a period of time and they went into that. So I guess technology really opens up a lot of things. And just to take the words of Sanjeev, is playing and will continue to play a more of a disruptor role in terms of changing the whole landscape of how blue collar workers engage with tech and how they grow.
Yes, thank you so much. I think we have spoken a lot about upskilling, but that is not yet, that is not done. We need to speak a lot about upskilling and reskilling. I mean, do a lot as well, execute a lot. And I'll come back to Dhruv. I think I mentioned this, that we need more than wages. We need to think more than wages when it comes to blue-collar workers. It's not only paying about good salaries, it also includes diversity, equality, flexibility, equity. So where do you think tech can come to the picture and help employers do that? Because this is really necessary, and this is what will be, build a strong workforce when it comes to blue collar. What are your thoughts, Dhruv?
So I guess one of my experiments, and I guess some of our speakers also have spoken on a similar line, that if the solution is right, given to a blue collar worker, the adoption rate is really fast. And that is really true for a lot of technology solutions that we give to our people and other benefits. So a lot of times in the boardrooms, when we sit and decide on the benefits of the policies for the blue collar workers, one skeptical person will stand up and say, no, you are going to give this, whether their adoption will be there, whether utilization will be there, whether the ROI will be there. And in my experience, I've always felt that they have responded far better than the corporate employees also at times, because there's a real need in them. So things like, does diversity helps them? My answer is yes. Will the equity help them? My answer is yes. And will the learning solutions or technology intervention that we are talking about over here help them? The answer is yes. The challenge that comes to us when we are designing it, that though they are at the first level or the second level, but the solutions required a lot of times are complex in the design of it and have to be simple in terms of understanding their needs. For example, learning solutions, and that's again one of my learnings. I believe that learning solutions, people learn by doing a lot at the first level or the blue collar level. You can't just show a presentation or give a paper and people can't read and they can learn. So if I were to design a technology or a learning solution for them, I will actually, my best way would be to do a role play, do a video, to shoot, we have some instructions. And instructions also will be like a vernacular solutions where, because people from different languages will not be able to read. As Rahul said, not many times people are not able to read their own Aadhaar card. So now building that solution for them where we can lift a person up the value chain in terms of learning, we have to first of all understand the need very clearly and to design a solution where we need to invest a lot more. But having said that, once the solution is ready, then the adoption rate and then the ROI on it, and then this actual impact on the business is really high. So when we are moving up the value chain, learning is certainly one of them. But things like equity, will many people at that level understand or appreciate it? My answer is maybe yes or a no. But there will be a section of people who may lap it up. Again, I will stick my conversation more to the basic levels, like learning solutions. I keep on harping up because some of the people said that we have to get people internally. What one understanding I have seen is that at Spencer's, we have a very robust development platform, what called Uthan. People are coming up, they become store managers, they become like senior store managers. But what I have realized is that if we promote, say, 100 people in a year, and we do their performance rating after 1 year, trust me, we don't see not more than 15 to 20% people doing exceedingly well in those levels. What happens is that though the organization wants to reach out to the people, but how much enablement we are able to do and what kind of a stretch people have their known abilities also matters a lot. So providing them the functional skills, providing them the behavioral skills, providing the right tools, I believe should be the primary focus where right now the workforce is. And then suddenly we can go up the value chain and provide a lot more other kind of enablements.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll come back to Sanjeev. We spoke about skilling, we spoke about equality, equity, and how salaries can help. But there's one more, I think, raising concern. It's not only in blue collar workers, but in the entire workforce. That is attrition. The blue collar workforce, high level of attrition as well. So, what do you think? What are the main reasons for this, and how can we resolve this problem? If you can, especially using tech, since we are all talking about technology and how it can help people. So, what do you think?
Yeah, but you have touched a very sensitive chord on attrition. All companies actually, have this trouble of people coming, joining, and leaving in a shorter span of time. I am from insurance sector, and the turnover, as far as employees and the extended selling force what we have, is so huge that the number of people which come in and the number of people which stick to the business after a year is abysmally low. And there have been enormous amount of discussion in the boardroom, outside the boardroom, at the field, at the ground level, to try to address this problem. But we have not been able to really pinpoint a solution to this. However, there are two things which can look at it. I will take it into both parts. One is for the blue collar job, and one is for the normal so-called white collar job from an insurance perspective. From a from a blue collar job perspective, there is a lack of opportunity for people. The engagement with the management is so less, and people rightly, in some of the conversations it came out, they are being just taken as a number. So when the connect with the organization is so low, then of course you do not see yourself to be valued. There is not much empathy. So you do your work, you get your wages, and then in case you find a better role or better person calls you, then effectively you move on. That's the first thing. Second thing is the involvement in decision making is not there, because we somehow try to categorize between the blue and the white. So white are the ones who are more privileged to get more access to doing some strategic thinking and be involved in decision making, which plays onto somebody's mind. And when they say they are not part of any decision making, then they try to leave. Now, if I had to draw a parallel between a blue collar and a white collar, the white collar ecosystem today, again, though they have access to the company's policies, procedures, they have access to tech. However, the human touch in those cases is relatively low. The managers today do not take enough, I would say, the heavy lifting in terms of ensuring that the person who joins them is absolutely up the curve. So they are being taken as people who know things, and they're supposed to deliver from day two. So today's manager is not giving the right inputs to the person out there. Let me give an example how we try to address it in Excite Life. We institutionalize a program called Manager as a Coach. So we skilled up the manager, ensure that right from the beginning of recruitment to onboarding, the entire responsibility goes back to the manager, and ensure that he takes up the functional and the domain training for people. The trainer is not at all involved. We are a knowledge-based industry, and we ensure that the manager at the ground level is capable of doing these things. Is it really 100% foolproof? I will not say that. But do we see a green shoots in this process? Absolutely yes, because he becomes kind of a force multiplier. If we have to now additionally put a technology around it, knowledge has to be democratized. It cannot remain into the hands of few people, because then it talks about the power. If knowledge is given to people using technology, I would say that's a first step of liberating people's quest of to be involved into a larger process of not only employment but larger process of working. So attrition will continue. The job roles will keep on getting redundant. The requirement for new skills is going to emerge, and new jobs are also going to come up. So somehow, when you envision India in the next decade or two, you would see people will have to compulsorily be a part of this ecosystem. The ones who are not going to be part of the ecosystem will be, the system will throw them out, and you will have no other option but to ensure that you transition and you take the responsibility of your own learning in your own hands using tech platforms. Back to you.
Great.
Back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Very nice point. Like that, new skill requirement will come up, and new jobs will come up for sure. And now I'll come to Rahul for the next question. Rahul, since your company is all about technology, I know the product. Apart from the product, everything is about technology, the placement, the order, the supply, and everything. So, what are the current and future trends of technology? That will impact the frontline workplace and workers as well, both, because you are dealing with all these, the meat artists of the world and the new artists that will come up. So how these technology trends are changing? What are the technology trends that will come up, and what will be its impact? What do you wrong?
So Amit, the first thing that we have seen that technology has already done is it has democratized the job market. And that is what it shall also continue to do. Tech alone in India has contributed to more than 1.5 crores of gig workers jobs. This is in addition to other blue collar jobs, and this gig workers have the impact that technology has made on them is in the form of flexibility and independence to these workers. And such flexibility also improves labor participation by employing people outside that traditional 9-hour job system. And especially if you see the impact technology has made through this flexibility is that women participation we have seen has risen to greater than about 26% in the past 2 years alone. And as just in the past, Sanjeev has said that this has also liberated to an extent the blue collar workforce, and what it has liberated them from like being anchored in truly hard manual jobs to jobs where they can work independently. It has freed them from being bound to one employer, and that to perhaps in the unorganized sector in a poorly paid job, to having a choice of platforms to work with at their convenience, at their choice. It is hard to doubt that the gig economy has transformed the blue collar job market from the traditional employer job market where the employer was the determinant to a job seeker market. The favor has been tilted in terms of the job seeker today. And with little investments of their own, just as little as a mobile phone with internet, a vehicle, or a toolkit for a beautician, millions of blue collar workers are actually independent entrepreneurs with certainly greater freedom than an employee. So this is something that technology has already impacted now, but this has also brought certain downsides. Most of the workforce lies outside the net of social security, such as PF, ESIC, insurance, pension. They also don't have stability of earnings most of the time. And such jobs don't offer perks of longevity, such as by staying longer, will you be getting promotions, growth, career advancement? The answer is perhaps no. And that is why we see the high attrition among gig workers, bringing us to our previous question. It is the highest among this population. But then were they better off without these jobs, without these opportunities, without such income? The answer perhaps is no, because participation in the gig economy is a validation of it being better than alternatives. But all this being said, technology shall have both positive and negative effects, right? So with aiding new job creation, we need to be mindful that most such frontline blue collar jobs, especially gigs, are typically unskilled. In this case, the technology has actually brought about a downskilling of many such workers. A person who might have been farming their own land or running their own kirana store or even herding their own cattle while living with their families, now driving a car on EMI or delivering parcels on a bike, perhaps 1,000 kilometers away from home. And technology is also going to make certain jobs redundant. The traditional salesmen of ITC and Unilever's FMCGs may no longer be required if retailers can place orders on the app. Today, modern trade and e-com contribute more than 10 to 15% of the sales of such large FMCGs. And some of the other jobs that will also face redundancy are, say, housekeepers, retail merchandisers, receptionists, customer service. So basically anything that can be automated shall inevitably replace manual efforts and eventually replace people. But on the positive side, yes, Abid.
No. I was just saying you have started a new debate here when you mentioned that retailers can order everything.
They do today.
Yeah, they do. Definitely, they do. And I'd love to have Dhruv's point of view in the same. But let's not go to that part because that is totally different. We are talking about blue collar workers. So yeah, you continue. Rahul. You're saying. But I have one more question. Sorry about that. You mentioned one point about that 28% of women. So by any chance, this technology has helped them growing more blue and blue collar workers? Was it helpful and how?
Helpful in doing what?
Getting more women workers of
Yes.
blue collar workers. Yeah.
Yes. So when the entry barrier to a particular profession gets lowered because of a democratization through technology that we are seeing, so then we see many diverse populations being able to work flexibly through home, outside the 9-hour work schedules. Today, if you see in our plants, in our manufacturing, traditionally in manufacturing, you see the diversity ratio is 3 to 5%. I have been in FMCG employers. However, in Licious, we have about 30% diversity of gender within our factories, in our processing centers. So that is one of the things that we have been able to source people from the interior parts as well. With the adoption of technology, we have been able to reach that population and positively see what will also technology bring about an impact. It's financial inclusion of work of frontline workers in the ways of credit, bank accounts, investments, upskilling opportunities in the form of access to online education, and actually Oust is doing a very good work with us in that, and development of new fields which are assisted by technology, such as assisted nursing, education, training, counseling, and faster hiring, increased freelancing, more flexible contracts, and but lower retention, and therefore greater costs associated with the blue collar workers. So blue collar workers per capita cost has actually risen because of the gig. It has not come down, but and also at the same time retention is also reduced. So overall, tech and automation shall definitely bring greater convenience to the customers, but it will definitely also change the nature of frontline jobs. It will not remain the same.
Okay, great points, Rahul. We have very less time, so I'll quickly touch upon a couple of questions. I'll come to Manish. You know, when you talk about digital, when you talk about tech, as Rahul also mentioned, that retailers are ordering this, but making the frontline workers adapt tech is a crucial challenge. So how are you cracking that barrier, and what does the road ahead look like? What is the current status now, and what do you think the road ahead looks like?
Yeah, thanks, Abhi. I'll put this up from what Dhruv was saying earlier about there's definitely a thought process that maybe adopting technology to frontline may have a downside. They may not really adapt it that well. But again, in our experience, that's not been the case. If you actually create a technology which is simple, which is friendly, which takes care of their specific needs, for example, multilingual, easy to use, simple stuff. And if you create if you create a tech solution which is designed with a frontline worker or a blue collar worker in mind, our own experience in Oust and BetterPlace has been that there has been a phenomenal adoption across industries. And I'm talking not about any particular client, but across industries. So workers today, I believe, are ready. The thing is that we should not push, let's say, a traditional white collar type of a solution, but design it more. So that's one part of it. And then workers are more than happy to really pick up, because they also today, I see increasingly a sense from a lot of these frontline or blue collar workers that they want to be part of the larger ecosystem. They just need solutions, and organizations need to enable those. And in our case, we have been lucky that there have been many organizations which have helped, and there are many more which are doing it. So I believe, yes, tech needs to be designed with the frontline worker in mind. It needs to be simple. It needs to, and the point that Sanjeev was saying, it needs to have that, tech needs to have that empathy, right? You can't design something just totally out of the blue and then try and push it down the line. That will not work. So that's typically what our experience has been about.
Great. Thank you for wrapping it up very quickly. So last question. I have a couple of more questions for you guys, but I think the audience questions are also coming, so we need to take that as well. So that's why last question. That question is for Dhruv. Dhruv, I think the debate has not over yet about tech versus touch, like the human touch, and has gone further. So do you think when we are talking about making the lives much better of frontline workers, blue collar workers, with so much advanced technology available, we still need the human touch to provide a better livelihood to the workers?
Tech certainly provides a scale and scope, and as Rahul said, there are sections, reaching out to sections that were not accessible earlier and providing flexibility. But again, he said in the same breath, and others also mentioned that things like promotions, things like career, things like development of these people, things like sustainability and stability, things like I mentioned about mentorship and development of these people. So the question remains that how will we provide all that? And especially in this new economy where, we are more or less living in a hybrid world, we're moving into a gig economy, people are not coming to offices on a daily basis, and then grooming these blue collar workers in their own development, and then teaching them the right values, the competencies, the ethics, all those that are required for any worker to develop beyond the functional skills. Those elements, there has to be a human touch developed. And my question is, how? The question remains that since we are able to sitting over here in one place, we're now able to deploy, say, thousands of people across by the help of technology. The human angle becomes increasingly more difficult because the ratio of the people to be managed, technology can multiply and exponentially give you a reach. But that reach and impact on the human side, I don't think we are yet have developed those kind of tools and processes where we can do that. And that takes time. The human touch takes time, building credibility, being trustworthiness, establishing leadership, passing on the right values, mentoring the people, developing leadership skills. Those things cannot be done on a click of a button, or giving a gig access and an app access and a payment comes and something is delivered. So I'm like concerned, if you ask me as a leader, managing such a vast workforce. We have given technology. There are a lot of examples of technology adoption, which is very, very fast. But giving a technology, giving a training, certificates coming up in 5 minutes, all said and done is okay. But the human side, I feel that I don't have really an answer. And it's a very complex question for all the HR professionals and business managers. How will those skills be developed along with the technology expansion?
Okay, then let me check with others. How many of you are with tech and not human touch? Do we need only tech or we need human touch? Yes, no. Manish is smiling. I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think tech and human, obviously, both is
Choose
definitely-
one, Manish, quickly.
One, I'll choose tech always. but tech without human. The point I wanted to say, tech without human will not work. That's the whole point. Tech can be the enabler. Yeah.
Okay, Rahul,
So tech is
tech or touch?
so I'm saying tech
Tech or touch?
assists. I'll say tech will assist the human touch. Okay, so human touch will come primary in my case.
I think Sanjeev will give me a clear answer, black and white. Tech or touch?
It's not even a fine balance. If you leave it to tech, you're heading for a disaster, I would say, because bots is going to take over your life completely. Then I think it's somewhere humans assisted by tech. Otherwise,
Okay.
you're heading for a very, very uncertain period, to my mind.
That sums up. Even a person like Elon Musk is buying a tech company, but he wants to remove the bot. He wants the human touch for sure. I think that's the reason we all need human touch. And coming back to the Q&A, I think we have a lot of questions. I'll try to ask everything. So we need to wrap up very quickly. The first question is, you guys can volunteer. How about, the question is from Balakrishna Lakshmi Narayana. The question is, how about including their families as beneficiaries of their efforts? Would that not help lead a more dignified life? He's asking about adding beneficiaries to the blue collar workers. So tell me, who would like to take this up?
I would like to take this up, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Dhruv, go ahead. Dhruv, go ahead.
So Sanjeev, I was thinking, and that's a good suggestion, in fact, because we mentioned that, we have to hire people outside the traditional educational system, people for skills rather than classes and 10th and 12th certificate. Similarly, if you see the typical, the way blue collar workers work in unorganized sector, you would say they are, I'm not saying about child labor, but typically you will see 5-6 people of the same family, uncle, cousins working together. And I will certainly believe that as we reach out hiring people, and a lot of times these hirings and this recruitment happens through reference. In fact, in our case, around 80-85% of selections and recruitments happen through references, where people not only kind of come up with their, I would not say immediate families, but their cousins and their people in the same communities come up. So extending the benefits, extending even to the case of employment to their families and near and dear ones, keeping in mind you don't end up having union issues and those kind of issues coming in, kind of focusing and concentrating people from one section, is a good idea. And we have to have a balance, because we can have people from one community and one family coming in, but balance in terms of groupism and those kind of other unrequired, not required activities should not be happening. So we have to try to find line on that side.
Okay, the next
I read
question
this
is
question
from,
from a security perspective, Abid. I was thinking that there is a lack of financial inclusion. There is not much of security available to the blue collar worker. So I think the time has come that we have a larger ambit of security around these guys, where beneficiaries to the work, ultimately the family is somehow protected. So probably this Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Yojana, which is kind of a Bima Yojana for these workers, I think needs to propagate more, so that in case something happens to them, the family is being protected. So you work also and you also secure. So that is how I would really like to read it, and I think it's a very valid suggestion.
great. The next question is from NR Money. The question is how the organization can help blue collar employees to sustain culture. Please volunteer, or you want me to allocate someone?
Sustained culture means in what sense? Like the organization culture he's talking about?
Yeah, I think how the organization can help blue collar employees to sustain culture. I think that's the question from NR Money. I think he is talking about organization culture.
I think culture is very a wider term to address. But if we have a ecosystem in place where we engage these people, involve them into decision making at some point in time, I think the culture, whatever is the management's viewpoint, is getting percolated down to the ground level. So I think rather than looking at them as a separate entity within an organization, it has to be more of an inclusive approach. And yes, if you do not have a culture at that level, you are going to have bound to have problems. You're going to have union issues. You're going to have wage issues. You're going to have attrition. You're going to have troubles, and and sometimes lockdowns as well. So effectively, you need to have a mechanism where people are transitioned from only being a blue collar number, kind of a number to them, but you have to transition them to apparently the so-called white job, where they play a major role in decision making as well. And that's how it is being said. If they see people moving up the ladder, I think they will see a value in staying back with you.
Okay. So I think this the next question, I think anyone, Manish or Rahul, can pick it up. So the question is from Ramana Kutti from Kochi, and the question is, I would like to know which are the common technology platforms for effective communication among blue collar workers with a link to backend database, very specific.
I think
Rahul, you want to
better-
go?
I think Manish, you will be better one to take this.
No issues.
Yeah.
I'll give my perspective, and I'm happy that you can also add on that. So yeah, there are many platforms. Honestly, today the good thing is it's not that there is only one platform. Also, there are many platforms through which blue collar workers do get a connect in terms of what's happening on the job. So there are specific apps. We have something. There are others also. The fact is that there is a plethora of, in fact, tech apps and stuff, and they are connected. And if I just talk about BetterPlace and what we have is, I guess what we have been able to do is we've designed maybe India's first, or I think the first focused HRMS system, which is focused on a blue collar frontline workforce population, which sort of connects everything right from job boards, application, hiring, payroll, staffing, upskilling, and all that. And that's really that sort of and we have a consumer app also, which is called Rocket. through which is freely available to download, and people can get access to what's the job and what is the skill gap and how they can upskill and all. So that's a solution we have. But as I said, this is our solution. There are other solutions also available, and today companies are increasingly looking at that to upskill, to connect with the blue collar workforce. So yeah, Rahul, you want to add something?
Largely, what I understand that is there anything which blue collar workforce can use to have inter communication among them? I'm not sure if any platform is as pervasive, which will enable such millions of blue collar workers to be interconnected with each other with the purpose of their profession, right? However, we see cohorts of people, and these are cohorts which are in the modern age. They're connected on online platforms where they communicate with each other. Today, if I do even 1 rupee change in the incentive for a delivery executive, everybody who is a rider in that city will perhaps come to know that Licious has changed their slab, or if Swiggy does that. And that is how dynamic pricing leads to immediate attrition and or even hiring acquisition among the delivery partner workforce. So while there is no central enabler which has provided such common platforms for their backend communication, backstage communication, it is out of their own necessity and need that these people have developed their own informal communication networks, right? However, I think that there is a good case for us to develop an effective communication network, and that is largely to improve say information salience. Today, right now it is all one way. So what I want to communicate, I can do, but they among themselves will only have to rely upon their informal communication networks. So not much exists today in this form, Rama. But I'm sure that listening to this seminar, if some people may come up with certain ideas, it is certainly going to help a large section of population.
Yes, I would love to see that for sure. The next question, I think, Sanjeev, you can take this up. The question is from Dheeraj Jadhav. The question is, hi, can fixed term employment will help to overcome this problem? I think the entire problem that you're talking about.
Overcome the problem specifically for attrition, for skilling? Yes, it can. It can.
Yeah.
However, look, the demand supply is changing. You need to have a platform where the demand meets supply. Currently, the COVID has thrown up such a diverse challenge for most of the organizations. At some point, when we realized that this is only a number, and when the lack of the labor came up, the entire organization came to a grinding halt. So I would say this can to a larger extent, but this is not the only solution. You will have to have a better way to address this issue. Only employment, and that to a fixed term employment, can be a part of the solution, but not the entire solution in itself. You'll have to think slightly more at a broader level, because currently availability of jobs is there. There are people who can leave you in a jiffy. There are opportunities available, and then just have fixed term employment is not going to solve. You need to have a larger play into this. The organizations need to have more skin in the game if they want to sustain, a larger and be successful.
I think you're only 1 minute short for a deadline. There is one more question I can take, and the question is from Devashish Das. What are the policies for meeting unplanned expenses of blue collar staff? What are the policies for meeting unplanned expenses of blue collar staff? I think this unplanned expenses.
I would say that the number of unplanned expenses are going down, at least in the last 20 years that I have seen. Things like, petty cash requirements, right from their snacks to kind of their travel, to their medical insurance, to the certain mishap that happens, security issues that happen, their various reimbursement, their uniforms. So I would say technology, in fact, has come very handy in many of these process improvements over the last 15, 20 years. And we organizations don't really want to have unplanned expenses to a larger degree. And that's how the management have moved and predicted various expenses, and that's the way it's going.
I think all the attendees, I want to say that you can directly ask these questions to your respective speakers, their LinkedIn chat, and you can send them invite, and you can definitely, and I'm sure they'll answer these questions, because there are 4-5 questions that's left. It's good to have this, problem to choose from different questions. And Rama is saying thanks to Manish and Rahul and all the other speakers for answering the question. And I think it was really a learning experience for me. Thank you so much, guys, for coming and sharing your thoughts. I think there are a couple of points that I mentioned that I have written down. That yes, they are irreplaceable when we'll upskill. We need to think they are not highly replaceable. The thing is, we also need to upskill them. And the last, yes, new skill are relevant and new jobs will come for sure. So these were my learnings. I think I've missed few and I've written down a few things. So thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Manish. And thank you, Dhruv, for sharing your valuable thoughts. It was wonderful, wonderful hosting you. Hopefully we'll meet soon. And hopefully I'll host you in physical conferences as well.